They're not booing. They're Kruged. My man, Larry Krueger joins me to talk Warriors. Things are rolling. How you doing? You ready to go?
Dude, good to see you, Cy. How are
You
you,
too,
man?
man. I'm doing okay, brother, and I'm going to be doing a lot better in a second when we talk Warriors and so much more. This is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available on all platforms. You can follow Larry Krueger on Twitter at SportsLarryKaneBR. You can follow me on Twitter at DogSurfRoadshow and this program on Twitter at Locked On Dubs. Krueger, it's so great to see you, my man. You're a broadcasting legend here in the Bay Area. Give us your first takeaways from that fantastic win last night, 124-115 over the T-Wolves.
It was a great win. It was a great win because any win they get without Draymond Green is incredible.
Yes.
And because the T-Wolves were playing great ball. I mean, the T-Wolves rolled in. It wasn't like the T-Wolves rolled in not playing well. The T-Wolves have rolled in playing good basketball.
Right.
And the Warriors found a way they had made an in-game adjustment that actually worked. And I'm not ripping on Kerr at all. I'm just saying that, sometimes they haven't made adjustments and it's burned them. In this game, they made a halftime adjustment on Karl-Anthony Towns, and they closed up shop on him and changed the outcome of the game by the way they handled it.
What was the adjustment? I didn't see anything specific that for the reason that Towns struggled in the second half, but what'd you notice that I missed?
Well, they doubled him. They just doubled him. I mean, he absolutely crushed them in the first half. He got guys got guys in foul trouble.
Yeah.
Scored at will. I mean, he always kills them on the glass side. You know that. And
yes.
But this time he was killing them offensively. He was killing them on both ends of the floor. And the Warriors put an extra man on him. They doubled him. They leaned their coverage towards him and had an impact. I mean, in the second half, he didn't do nearly what he did in the first half.
Yeah, and he still had a great game, but you're right. The first half, he was eviscerating the Warriors. In the second half, and there was the adjustment. I did not notice the double team there, but it worked. And look, man, first things first, here's what's been bothering me with the Warriors the last few weeks, and maybe the last month, and maybe more than that, is besides the fact that Draymond's presence obviously missed, is they're attempting far fewer shot attempts than their opponents. And last night was another example of that. They shot 13 fewer field goal attempts than the Timberwolves, but because they shot 21 for 36 from three, which is another area they've been struggling, they took care of them. I've been talking a lot about this team needing size. Kevon Looney is obviously stepping it up. But now Wiseman, Steve Kerr basically has shut the door on talking about Wiseman's progress anymore. He's like, look, if we get him, we get him. We don't know when. In your opinion, what should they do about the center position? And I'm not talking about Looney. I think he's fine, but you need some depth there. I really believe that. What do you think they should do? Should they just wait for Wiseman? Is it time to maybe shut that down for the year and sign someone else? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the first thing you got to decide, size, if and when you can get some help inside. And I agree with you. I think they have two needs. They don't have a lot of players who can beat you off the dribble and penetrate into the lane. But
right.
The most notable one is they lack size, and they were banking on James Wiseman. Now, if they had Wiseman, that wouldn't be an issue, and they do own his rights. And theoretically, he's coming back at some point, right?
Yeah.
But when is that? And even Tom asked him a question. Tom asked Steve Kerr a question when we had Kerr on this week about, is there a point in the season where they can't really introduce him into their mix because it's too late in the year and it's too soon, too close to the playoffs? And Steve didn't commit to that either way. But I think the first thing you got to decide if you're Golden State is who is going and what roster spot are you going to use if you can get, a stopgap, big fill-in. Paul
right.
Millsap's out there. They looked at him in the offseason. The Nets are willing to trade Paul Millsap. The Warriors have a number. I think they have three different trade exceptions. Two of the three I think would fit if you wanted to send it back attached to a draft choice for Millsap. But I don't know that they still want Millsap. He's an older player. Sacramento's got Alex Len at the end of their bench, who's a big man who might be able to help them. There's a lot of talk that Sacramento is going to move Tristan Thompson at some point. That he could be an
Ooh.
option.
Yes. I like that,
There's
actually.
there's a couple names out there that make sense, but the first question you got to say is you got to answer is, okay, you can get fill in the blank Tristan Thompson. Whose roster spot? They don't have a spot right now. Is it Damian Lee? Is it Bielitsa? Who exactly are you moving off of the roster to create that spot? I think I think it'll be interesting too, because the buyout market, some of these guys who don't get traded, like Tristan Thompson, may not get traded. He may get bought out by the Kings. And in that buyout market, I think the Warriors might, look to be involved in that, but they're going to have to either do a 2-for-1 trade or cut somebody to create the roster room.
Yeah, and I just had the box score up, and I'll bring it back up in a second to kind of show what some of the players were doing last night. I've thought a lot about this, and I'll actually bring that back up. I first of all, I don't think the Warriors are going to pull a trade. Myers has been very, I'm trying to think of the right word for it. Frugal is not it, but in terms of making deals, he's just kind of seems comfortable standing pat. My honest thought is, like, I don't think you waive anyone outside of maybe JTA, but he seems to be a good chemistry guy. Just because his minutes have gone down over the last week or so since that horrific game. I can't remember who it was against, where we saw JTA and Iggy on the floor together and the offense was just stagnant. And JTA has been heaving up a lot of threes he shouldn't be putting up. I think it's just you got to make a decision on Wiseman and maybe just put him on the injured reserve list for the rest of the year. I don't know what the proper nomenclature is for that, where you just basically sit him, you keep his rights, but he just is out for the year. I think that's the only move, is that you just have to at some point decide, is James Wiseman going to play? And if he's not, maybe we just sit him down for the rest of the year and use his spot, because like you said, they got the rights. Dude, I would love Tristan Thompson. I think that would be a great guy to bring off the bench for 15, 20 a year. But I have the stat sheet open right now. I don't know if you could see it. Some great numbers. Again, Otto Porter Jr. has been a fantastic pickup. Andrew Wiggins, moments after being named the All-Star starter, puts up a solid 19 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. But the Splash Brothers, I think, really sold the show last night. And Jordan Poole. Jordan Poole is actually starting to put together a consistent run with numbers, which they need. And I think the biggest reason for that is he's not heaving up a million ugly shots. He's kind of reverting to the basics and keeping it simple. Next question to you, man. What do you think about the All-Star game? Like, the Warriors got Wiggins as a starter. I think Steph was obvious. Wiggins was kind of a surprise to a lot of people. What are your thoughts on that? Do you like it? Is the homer in you loving it, or is there any objectivity there that maybe kind of steps in and goes, Wiggins? What's your take on that?
Well, I mean, I'm happy for I'm a lifelong Warrior fan, right? So,
Same.
I mean, I see things through, Warrior glasses strictly.
Same, yeah.
I think, so I remember Steph made an All-Star team. Steph and Klay both started one year. Steph and KD both started one year. But it's pretty rare for the Warriors to have 2 starters in the All-Star game. I was shocked, to be honest. I mean, it speaks to the passion of Warrior Nation, right? I mean, they part of this vote was tied to the fan vote, and I'm sure Wiggins kicked butt in the fan vote because of the passion of Warrior fans. So in one way, I'm thrilled for the Warriors. I'm thrilled for the fans. I'm thrilled for Wiggins. He's definitely improved his game. But if you're asking me, do I think he's the best? Is he one of the 3 best forwards or center in the Western Conference? There's no chance. There's no chance. So I like what he's done. Two-way wigs, and he plays both ways.
Oh, I lost your audio there for a second. Larry, if you can hear me, I lost your audio for a second there. Can you hear me right now? We're having some sort of audio difficulties on Larry Krueger's part. Let's see if I can fix that. I apologize for the technical difficulties there. You can see Larry on the screen, but we lost his audio feed. And he probably can't hear me either. So why don't we take a quick break? Larry, we can't hear you. I can't hear you. All right, I'm going to take a quick break. Why don't we first talk about one of our longtime sponsors of the program, Bet Online. And meanwhile, hey, Larry, can you hear me? We lost you there for a second. Your audio just went bye-bye. And while he's trying to fix that, I'm going to talk about a longtime sponsor of the program, Bet Online. There might be less football being played, but Bet Online has way more stuff to bet on this playoff season, from scores, totals, player performance props, to where the next fired coach is going to land. BetOnline.ag is the #1 spot for all things NFL betting in 2022. And with the new year comes a new updated desktop and mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code Locked On to get started. And it's not just football. BetOnline's basketball, hockey, boxing, and UFC odds coverage is the best in the business. From sports right down to your favorite Vegas casino games, BetOnline is your #1 online wagering destination. BetOnline.ag, the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports and play your favorite games. BetOnline, where the game starts.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen. The NBA trade deadline is Thursday, February 10th at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, and the Locked On NBA podcast will be covering it live from 2 to 4 p.m. Join Kim Becker, John Corrales, and Locked On Fantasy Basketball host Josh Lloyd to get analysis of every blockbuster move. Subscribe to Locked On NBA YouTube and turn your notifications on so you know when they go live. Larry, do we have you again now, or are we good? Let's try this again. Oh, now you're frozen. Okay, can you talk? I can't. Can you hear me? Oh, you can hear me. I can't hear you for some reason, which totally sucks. Can you leave and just come back? I'm hoping that'll be fixed. Just leave and click on that same link I sent you a moment ago, and then I'll hopefully get you back in just a second. And while we do that, I'm going to play this soundbite real quick of Stephen Curry. This is from last night's post-game press conference when he was talking about the team had like a group chat sort of thing. The Warriors players, I'm sorry. So here is Stephen Curry talking about the team getting together on the phone and discussing the AllStar selections.
Time.
How'd you find out?
When I woke up, my wife had texted me, and then our group text was going crazy, celebrating Wiggs, his first one. So it's pretty special. Good energy coming into the game tonight, and obviously for him, an amazing accomplishment and all he's been through his career, well deserved. And I know we're all like just crazy excited for him to get his first experience.
Feel a little overshadowed in the moment in the group chat and everything?
Yeah, I think there was like a 30-minute delay before Draymond realized he had to say congratulations to me. Then I got like a little I think I got like a quick slide on the pregame edit. And they had a whole highlight reel for Wiggs, and then a little splash page came on at the end, like, oh yeah, congrats, Steph.
All right, and that was Stephen Curry right there. And I think we got Larry Krueger back now. Okay, is there an audio issue resolved?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now again. Yeah, you just suddenly
back.
Click, something happened. All right, great to have you back. And that was Stephen Curry. First of all, that turtleneck was a very weird look. Did you see that? How like I saw these pictures of it, and the beard and the turtleneck almost like looked like they were together as one, and he looked like almost like a jihadist, like with that huge, massive beard. But anyways, how is life for you, man? I mean, you have a really huge fan base in the Bay Area. You've been a media personality. I'm gonna ballpark guess 30 years. Is that how long you've been with KNBR? It's got to be creeping up to that number, at least 25, right?
97.
I mean, yeah. So tell the average listener what is the daily life like for Larry Krueger? You live in Walnut Creek, the Dub C, correct?
That's right. That's right.
So what's your day like besides hosting from 2 to 6 on KNBR?
Well, I mean, I like to lift weights. I like to run on the treadmill. I like to exercise, and then I just do, cause I got 4 kids, and they play sports, and so I'm usually watching I'm almost always at some field, some gym, somewhere watching my kids play. And I got to be honest, those are the games that make me the most nervous. I get more nervous watching my kid play, baseball or football or whatever than basketball than watching the Niners, the Giants, the Warriors. So, but yeah, I just pretty much just do that. I'm pretty low key, man. I do my job Monday through Friday and try to, support my kids as much as I possibly can.
I love that, dude. You're a family man. My sincerest condolences for your parents, by the way. You just told me that before we start, dude. And I know you're a family person, and I absolutely love that about you. Going back to the Warriors, let's say you're Bob Myers. Let's say Bob Myers gets fired and they hire Larry Krueger as the GM.
Right.
What do you do? What do you do with this roster? Do you just stick it out with Wiseman? Do you decide? You mentioned that they have no idea. Like Steve Kerr told your partner in crime on the afternoon show, Tom Tolbert, that they don't really know what's going on and what they're going to do. What would you do?
I don't think there's anything to do with James at this point. I mean, you have to ride it out. I mean, nobody who's witnessed his injuries is going to give you anything. You're not going to get fair value in a trade.
Yeah.
So I don't think a trade is really viable at this point. If it was, I would definitely consider my options and see what people are offering. But I don't think that's a viable option. I don't think it's necessarily a smart play to trade him. At this point, I think I would probably try to see, what I'd like to see. And I mentioned this to the guys on the show. We still haven't seen the 10 to 15 games in a row that Green and Curry and Thompson are on the floor together with the new group. And I'd like to see that before I make any wholesale changes to my roster. If I could pick up like an Alex Len or a Tristan Thompson or a Millsap and have a little bit more size, I would do that. And, like, I don't think I would have done that a month ago. But now that the Suns, who already have 8 and have added Bismack Biyombo, I think Biyombo gives them a little bit too much size to contend with the roster as is. So I would like to have one more body to bang inside. But even that, I'm not, I don't know exactly how. I think your idea of using Wiseman's roster spot by somehow putting him on some list makes probably better sense. I don't want to move JTA. I don't want to move Bielitsa. I don't want to tear down the roster necessarily, and I don't think it needs it. But they definitely have to have either Wiseman or some facsimile of Wiseman to help them against the bigger teams in the league. I mean, the West and the East, really.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, man. And what no one seems to be talking about much is the wear and tear that's just by each game wearing on, sorry to be redundant there, but just kind of taking its toll on the bodies of Kevon Looney, Draymond, Bielitsa, night after night, dealing with these bigger bodies. I don't think it's a coincidence that Draymond has this back injury. I really think, no pun intended, he's been carrying this team on his back so much, dealing with these bigger bodies, that something had to give at some point. That's my whole reason for constantly advocating to add another big man, is that you can't just depend on these 3 guys night after night dealing with bigger bodies. I mean, it's not rocket science to understand that if someone outweighs you by 30, 40 pounds and they're constantly banging up against you, something's going to give at some point, and that's my argument for why maybe wait another few weeks, maybe wait another month. But if Wiseman's just not ready by then, maybe it's time to just sit him down for the rest of the year and start this project next year, just because of the long-term hopes. Speaking of long-term hopes, I really want to pick your brain about the long-term prospects for this Warriors team, because to me the championship is very realistic. And I love your insights. We'll have more with Larry Krueger after we talk about Built Bar. Have you ever had a Built Bar, Larry?
No.
These things sound. I haven't had one yet. I'm still waiting for them to send me a box, but everyone I talk to raves about it. They're like protein bars that taste like a candy bar. They have like a fraction of the calories, a fraction of the sugar and carbs, but they're loaded with 17 grams of protein, and they're covered entirely in 100% real chocolate. They got amazing flavors like coconut, almond, peanut butter brownie, raspberry, cookies and cream, salted caramel, mint brownie, and so much more. In fact, Built is always coming out with new limited time flavors. So check out built.com often to see what's new. Go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. Just use the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available on all platforms. You can follow Larry Krueger on Twitter at SportsLarryKNBR. He's the host of KNBR's Afternoon Drive Time show with Tom Tolbert and Rod Brooks every afternoon from 2 to 6. You can catch it with a stream. I'm sure they podcast it. What are your long-term projections for this team? I look at the Warriors roster, and the moment you said you want to see Steph, Klay, and Dre together on the floor, I was about to just jump out of my seat, because with this team, I really think they're the favorites. What is your thoughts on the end game for this run this year?
You know, every time I think about the Warriors in title contention, I think of Christmas Day, because Christmas Day they went into Phoenix and they put one on Phoenix. And,
yes.
And to me, that is the team that they have now. That team didn't have Klay. That team didn't have Wiseman.
Oh.
So they should be even better than that team. Now, Phoenix didn't have Biyombo at that point, so they're a little different as well. But I look at Phoenix as the team that stands between them and the title. I'm sure you can make an argument for the Nets. I don't know. There's something about the Nets, and their three guys are so volatile, and Kyrie can't play at home, and Harden, is he going to be traded? And KD's now dinged up. And I don't know. I look at Phoenix as the team that really stands between them and a title. And without Wiseman, they don't measure up. They don't match up with Ayton that well.
Right.
So that is a concern in a long series where, teams can kind of drill down on your weaknesses and go right at your weaknesses. I'm a little concerned about that matchup, but I'm buoyed by the fact that Golden State seemed to run the show, basically,
yeah, they did.
On Christmas Day against those Suns. So I feel good about Golden State's chances to win a title this year. They're a united team. They've got great chemistry. They can get out and run. They can beat you in the half court. They defend like crazy. Right now we're seeing their offense struggle, but and I know, everybody knows, the Warriors' offense is not going to be a problem when push comes to shove. So I think Golden State's a terrific pick right now. If you were in Tahoe, I wouldn't have any problem putting money on Golden State, because I think they've got all the components that you need to win a title.
Or you could go to betonline.ag and place that bet as well. What are your thoughts? And they're an official sponsor of the program. What are your thoughts? I just read a snippet of a column. I don't subscribe to The Athletic, and just on a personal note, I hate promoting them because 95% of their staff are just, and from my personal experience, not the nicest people in the world. So I don't like giving them love. But they did publish an article this morning that Stephen Curry apparently found the solution to his ails, which was that he was just putting an uneven weight distribution on his feet when he was taking a shot. Have you seen that story?
No, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's the Marcus Thompson wrote a column this morning, and I don't know if he overheard it. He seems to be one of the most inside individuals locally with the team. So let's hope that got resolved. I mean, Steph looked good last night. Are you happy with Steve Kerr's rotations and more specifically the youngsters like Kuminga and Moody? Kuminga was a starter for like a blink of an eye, and then he got pulled for Otto Porter Jr., which makes sense. But a lot of Dub Nation has a lot of complaints about the minutes the youngsters are getting. Are you happy with Steve Kerr's rotations with them and the rest of the team?
I mean, I think you just have a lot of fans who, it's a long year. There's not a lot to discuss, and so they're nitpicking. I have no problem. I have no problem with the way the Warriors have handled their young players. First of all, is Kuminga developing? Yes. Is he contributing to winning basketball? Yes. Is Moody getting run in the G League? Yes. Is he producing when he's down there? Yes. Are these guys teenagers? Yes. I mean, they're 19 years old. I mean, and he's got a stacked roster. I mean, if anybody should sit, it should be those guys. Now, Kuminga is interesting because he's shown that with added minutes that he can handle the load, and he can be your small ball 5 if you want, or definitely a power forward. I mean, he's got great strength in his body. So, I mean, to me, my only complaint about Steve's his rotations and who he plays is there have been, I would say, a handful of times this year where the game ends and I think to myself, man, I really would have loved to have seen more of Gary Payton II.
Yeah. Yes.
And I don't understand why Gary Payton II doesn't get more run. Now, I realize they don't, he's not a 35-minute player, and he's not an offensive player. But he's improving on that end of the floor, and he's a difference maker on defense. You can put him on a Ja Morant. Morant looks uncomfortable. You can put him on Trae Young. Trae Young doesn't even want to shoot anymore.
Yes.
You could put him on some of these. I mean, the league is an alpha league where there's one guy in almost every team that is like one with the ball. Put Gary Payton II on every one of those guys for extended minutes and let him feast. Nobody feels comfortable going at a guy who's 6'4" with the wingspan of a small forward, and great strength and great tenacity and great determination. I mean, he's got all of it. He's an impact defender, and if it was up to me, I don't know whose minutes I would take, but I'd like to see him get a few more.
I'm 100% with you. I don't understand what Steve Kerr's trepidation is in terms of committing more to Gary Payton II. I mean, they didn't even really want him. They gave him sparse minutes at the end of last year. They didn't give him the guaranteed contract to start this year. He could have easily been signed by someone else. They still haven't given him a contract extension, which I think is kind of ridiculous at this point. I mean, lock him in. Don't let someone else steal him this offseason. But no, I'm totally with you, man. Real quick,
they
changing gears.
They did make one great decision, is that the Warriors put so much trust in their stars. And yet their stars at the end of camp were like Avery Bradley.
Yeah.
And they said, you know what? No, we're going Gary Payton II. And I think that was a pivotal decision. I mean, I think it was a great decision by Myers.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, man. I can't argue with you there. We're recording this on January 28th, Friday. Happy birthday, Mom. And I do want to switch gears for just 1 second because the Bay Area is also talking Niners. What's your pick this Sunday, man? Who's winning the Niners-Rams game, NFC Championship? I'm thinking Joe Montana back when Ronnie Lott broke up that play in the 1989-90 NFC Championship game. That's the last time I think they played in the playoffs, and I have vivid memories of that. What's your pick for this Sunday?
Yeah, I like the Niners. I mean, I wouldn't just say that just because I'm doing the Niner pregame show or we're the flagship station of the Niners. You know me, man. If I didn't think the Niners were going to win, I would tell you I don't think the Niners are going to win. I do think the Niners are going to win. The 49ers' strength and Garoppolo's strength is in the middle of the field. Kittle, Ayuk and Debo on crossers, Jennings on in-breaking routes. The Rams that's the weakness of their defense. They built their defense with the money on their defensive front and Ramsey on the corner. And they're not nearly in their championship caliber in those spots. Their D-line will put a heavy rush on you. Ramsey is a dominant one-on-one defender. But in the middle of the field, they, rob from Peter to pay Paul. I mean, it's a salary cap league, and they don't. I think their defense in the middle of the field just sets up perfect. NFL is a lot about matchups, and this is a bad matchup for the Rams. Now, I'm not saying there's no way the Rams win. The Niners can't be -2 in turnovers and win this game. But
Right.
Jimmy G's due for a good game. I saw Kittle said today or yesterday that, hey, if we lose this game, our whole season is for naught. And I think that's the feeling in the building. So I think the 49ers are going to have a ton of fans in the house. I think it's going to be an overwhelming sea of red. And I think Garoppolo's due for a pretty good game. I think they're going to run the ball. I think they're going to complete passes in that short middle of the field, the short and intermediate area, but in the middle. And I think the 49ers are going to win. Now, what's the final score going to be? I'm thinking maybe like 27-24 Niners, something like that.
Wow. Okay. High scoring. So the over.
Yeah, I do.
I
It's
don't
a
actually. I
fast
don't know what the
track.
OU is, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think there'll be some points in this game.
Oh, that's phenomenal. And you're right, man. The two times they played this year, the Niners just picked apart the middle of the field. Every single time Jimmy G threw the middle, someone was open. Before we go, and this is very insider, I don't know how much this is going to interest most of our listeners, but you and I worked together for a long time at KNBR. And it was such a pleasure being your producer all those years. And just down the hall from us was another radio station, 107.7 The Bone, which is partnered with you folks, and they also carry the Niner games. And their nighttime DJ back then was an individual whose radio name was Billy Steele, and you were close friends with him. He actually found me my first place to live in San Francisco, and we always got along great. We were Facebook friends, but I haven't talked to him much in recent years. And then you dropped this bomb on me this morning that he passed away. You don't have much to tell, but is there anything you could share to the audience who are familiar with Billy, whose real name was Paul? I can't pronounce his last name. I'll let you take over there.
Yeah, I mean, his name was Paul Pravitoni, and he's just a great guy, man. He went to St. Ignatius High School. He was 5 years older than me. He was class of '83 from St. Ignatius, and he was in my brother's class. And just, some people that are just, you love running into them because of their aura. This guy had
their energy,
awesome energy, awesome aura, so cool, so enthusiastic, so selfless, and he was a rocker, man. He was a metalhead.
He was.
And
he was.
He would wear Metallica shirts, and his music knowledge. I mean, that's really what first amazed me. Is I was like, wow, this guy knows everything about music. And sadly, he passed, and I really don't know any details about how he passed or any of the particulars. Otherwise, I would gladly share. But Paul Pravitoni, rest in peace. And he was a great radio guy.
Phenomenal.
He was a great DJ. I can remember, and you were there. It was a Friday night, and the KNBR studio and the Bone studio were literally like next to each other. And you're playing a commercial break, and I went to the bathroom, and then I came back into the control room. And I'm like, "Si, you got to play a extended commercial break. I'll be back." And you're like, "What?" And I'm like, ran out the door, and Billy Steele was sitting in the lobby with Slash from Guns N' Roses, who was smoking a cigarette, by the way, in an office building.
I remember
seeing that. He shouldn't have been. So I was like, dude, who's this guy smoking a cigarette? And I didn't recognize him. I didn't recognize Slash because I'm not that kind of a, I recognize more athletes than musicians. But, he's like, yeah, this is Slash from Guns N' Roses. And, oh, man, we start talking about Guns N' Roses and some of their hits. And so I'm out there for like 15, 20 minutes, and you're running commercials one after another on a Friday night. I'm sure the audience is going, what the hell happened here? But
I think I remember patting it. I patted it.
Between Billy and Slash and just, sometimes being in the moment, I was just like, man, I got to drink this in and spend a few minutes with these guys. So that was my one memory of Billy, but from that I could share, but he's just a great guy, a friend to all, and a guy I send thoughts and well wishes to his family and friends, and Billy Steele, Paul Pravitoni, rest in peace.
Oh man, and yeah, we knew his wife. I remember she'd come by the studio. They had a kid together, and he was also a really good IT guy. He was very, very good when it came to computers. Right. I think that was like his main job when he left radio. But that's crazy news. Anyways, man, and speaking of aura and vibe, that's how I feel about you, brother. You always. Thanks, you have a good. Your energy is always incredible, and I love you, dude. And let's do this regularly, I hope. And you can catch Larry on KNBR again Mondays through Fridays from 2 to 6. And in addition to all the other stuff you cover for them, from Niners, I think Stanford, you do all sorts of stuff with them, and baseball's around the corner. We'll talk soon, man. Thank you so much for coming on, Larry. You can follow Larry Krueger on Twitter at SportsLarryKNBR. And we'll see you Monday. Anything else you want to promote before we go?
No, not at all. Go Niners. Check out our pregame show. We're going to be doing a pregame show leading into 49ers a couple hours before Adam Copeland gets it rolling, and then John Lund, Dennis Brown, and I lead in. But love you, brother, man. If I can support you in any way, let me know, man.
Likewise, brother. All right, man. And thank you, Dub Nation, and we'll see you Monday. Thanks. Later.